So basically, I'm going to explain everything that happened, that I planned, and basically how my focal student did with the whole remediation process. So basically, while I said that Henry's at an ideal level for phonics and phonemic awareness, his biggest struggle is comprehension. More specifically, the main idea and details. Like I said, his foundational level is approximately a level Y, and because he's able to read that text without a lot of difficulty. What I said that this student could do is attempt at decoding words above 2 syllables, decode a text with high accuracy, demonstrate adequate fluency, and utilize good phonics and phonemic awareness. All these things are stuff that he either needs like minimal intervention or no intervention with. And like I said, the student can't determine the main idea of a passage. Like, as I said, he tends to focus on like a handful of details rather than all of them, focus on more than one detail about a text, and think of multiple contexts for vocabulary. So basically, with my case study 3 might look a bit different to what my lesson plans or what I say, because I had to like pivot at points. For instance, I wanted to do main idea, detail, and then putting it all together. However, my focal student didn't meet my first learning target, so I had to teach it to him again, this time modifying the worksheet for him. I'll explain that more in detail. But the learning goals and outcomes I had for him were: 1, the student will be able to identify the main idea of 5 example articles with 100% accuracy. 2, the student will be able to identify the detail that doesn't match with the others 5 times with 100% accuracy. And 3, one that I didn't end up using in its fullest, but I did fulfill in a sense with the 3rd worksheet. Using evidence from the text, Henry will be able to determine the main idea and details with 100% accuracy. You'll also find in my case study 3. So for remediation activities, I didn't go and make all the lesson plans at the same time, but rather I went by week to week basis. For instance, I made the first lesson the first week before Thursday, and then I just taught it the Thursday of, so on and so forth. So my first lesson 1 was like writing the main idea worksheet. I made a worksheet by scratch because there were no worksheets that fulfilled what I wanted him to do. So I used titles from the ReadWorks website, and I had the student determine the main idea by basically just looking at the title, which is a strategy that Dr. Burke gave us as a class for teaching students to find the main idea. I modeled the first question, and I basically walked him through what I wanted him to do. Instead of just like giving him the answers, I sort of modeled it and had him fill in the blanks too. And then after that, I had him write down what he thought the article was going to be about, and utilized a bit of metacognition by asking him how he knew it was going to be about, and it repeated for just about as many questions as he can do. So for lesson 2, I changed the worksheet. Well, I made a new worksheet, but I made it multiple choice rather than written response. I assumed it was because of the format of my worksheet that was confusing for him. So I made a new article with multiple choice questions, pulled titles from articles either from e-reading worksheets or just something that I made up on the fly. I gave him a list of 3 options, and I had him circle the correct answer after having him read the title. And if he got an answer incorrect, I basically walked him through the correct answer by having him look at the title again, read the title again. He was able to figure out on his own, and I will elaborate on that later on. And details worksheet, and that was my lesson 3. I made a worksheet with like a short little paragraph, but one detail didn't belong. So I had him circle the relevant detail first. I initially wanted him to find the main idea too, in a sort of like kind of putting it all together process, but it ended up not working out that well, and I told him to not do it. And I also had him come up with a fake title. So due to the time, and as well as him struggling on it, I had him like no longer focus on the main idea, because fundamentally I still wanted the lesson to focus more on detail. And that's just a part of teaching that I learned. You're not going to be able to do what you want to do all the time. So I would say that he made slow but steady progress, not quite where I wanted him to go, but like still some progress that he got to with like my guidance. So for the first worksheet, like I said, he was struggling heavily with trying to write stuff down. He wasn't able to meet my learning target because he also wanted to do like one more question together. And I had to like frequently clarify stuff that he didn't already know, which was a big mistake on my part. So I took it as like his lack of comprehension skills and me making the worksheet too complex for his reading levels, so I changed it. So I made a new worksheet, this time multiple choice and not written response. And he did do a better job with that one. He was still able to get at least 5 questions right, which was what I was aiming for. Well, not counting the one that we did together. He got 2 wrong, but when I had him look at the question again, it was like the gears finally clicked in a sense. And as for the third lesson, he still was able to do 5. In fact, he was able to do 1 more, but I had him like discard the finding the main idea because it was more like an extra activity he had to do rather than something in the learning target that I had him figure out. But fundamentally, he was able to meet the learning target. Everything else was just extra. As for the student reaction, I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't entirely thrilled to do these lessons with me. But then again, that's pretty expected for the age group. Middle schoolers are at the age where they're starting to care more about what their peers think, and being pulled aside to do lessons with someone who isn't even a teacher yet, just a college student trying to be one, would feel a little isolating. But despite this, I would try my best to make him feel comfortable with me. I would basically treat this as if it were any other lesson. I joke around with him when it was appropriate and not in a way that was disruptive. And I also made some questions centered on his interests, which I hope that he appreciated, because middle schoolers tend to be more interest-centered and do stuff based on what they like, rather than basic academic stuff. But he did know when to get focused, when to basically get down to business. I didn't really have to redirect him as much, which was great to see. He is, as the kids say nowadays, locked in. And he still actively tried with the activities, even though he didn't always have an easy time with it. And the feedback I'd give to him, I basically try to stay positive, and I would stay engaged with him all throughout the lessons, even when he was doing technically independent work, but he still needed my guidance quite a bit. And I would start my sentences with stuff like, so what do you think this is? To have him think about what he's about to do. If he got a question right, I'd ask him, how did you know that? He often said he didn't know, so I would, try to walk him through the question. However, if he got it wrong, I would guide him by having him basically look at the title, or by looking at the question again. For example, during the main idea multiple choice worksheet, I had him read the title again. For example, the platypus article that I made up. He initially answered platypuses lay eggs, but when he read the all about the weirdest mammal part, it was like a light bulb went off in his head, which ultimately that's what I'm trying to do as a teacher. So this is my remediation lesson, and fundamentally I hope it stayed with him.